True love is the answer. So we need to exist in a world where true love is the answer, or we need to perform as true love for our world in view of reality and the things around us. And so some people would have a hard time acclimating to this situation. And I just have only inspiration today. So let me just begin with my presentation. And what I want to make clear is that I'm not performing with some sort of encryption which prevents people's understanding. Okay. So you know, in that in that passionate way that we could actually discover something that we're actually looking for, that we could actually understand how to make the future brighter. Let's join now in agreement that we are respecting one another and that what we're doing today in this meditation with this visual thing, okay, images are very important. In fact, I'm seeing an indication that the universe is built from images, or like you could understand how that would be the stabilizing of what would otherwise be an impossible existence. And there have been many poets and philosophers throughout all of the universe who have dealt with this encounter. And it's the most intense thing, it's the most powerful thing. But that's why we're here, is because it's passionate and it's alive. So we're beginning here with everyone being respected, a clean parchment for the sake of transcendence, true love, and epiphany. And I'm changing my gears a little bit here because yesterday, after I performed, I have to tell you, I was just like, all of a sudden, I was, I felt so much better. And I was like floating. I was like, oh, like, I felt like, oh man, I hit the nail on the head. And so I'm returning today to explain something like Trey Parker is pure genius for America, and he's really important, and we love him and we support him. But right now, I want to take like a siesta from that. And Trey's done nothing wrong, and he hasn't contacted me in any way or told me to perform in this way. Okay, I'm completely independent, but I do want to make an attempt to meditate with potentially what could be my government, you know, as, because they're proactive in the leadership of the world and in the understanding, and, they're working for orientation about like what's going on here and how do we master ourselves. And so that's absolutely what this meditation is about. And so I'm inviting you guys to put on your thinking caps, your own stuff. Okay. And what some people might be a little bit frazzled by this encounter, and I'll tell you why. Because the self fractal is not a method of, distorting or changing who you are. It's actually built from who you are. And so many people are having an epiphany where they're like, holy, oh my God. Like, but professionally, they're like, oh, yes, this seems important, stamp. And then, it goes to a different department. And then all of a sudden, the system of the government is performing total, high criminal action with, giving the cure to AIDS to Trump's campaign group. When I'm running for president, it's hard for me, but that's the reality. And I think that you guys could accept on some level, technically, yes, this person is running for president. He just doesn't have funding or, a bunch of things. But you can, he's been explaining his campaign strategy. And, to take from that and then give it to a different president is actually by definition, criminal. But let's just let's just take a step back from that because we're not here to accuse each other or divide each other. And these people, like, if there is like a small group, uh, or just one person who's been researching my stuff, that person's understanding of this case is absolutely vital. And I don't know if it was the person who I sensed in the previous recording, I sensed someone was getting really upset. But that's, what I understand today is that we are a family. And it would be ridiculous to think like, oh, what we need to do is get a different, group of researchers to take over this project, okay, and start fresh. And like, okay, the next thing he's going to say is going to be it because what? Because you're working, because of remote programming is informing you to build up a case to criminalize me. Okay, so you've already done high crime by the with the AIDS cure, you've misplaced that behavior. But this is a telling sign from the system. So the system has a broken thing. The people in it are all doing their best, but they're like, oh, we don't have a good leader. We need. And so I'm running for president to be that leader. But that would be enlightened. Holy smoly. Can we really plug this thing in and light up a Christmas tree? That'd be like multitasking and doing all this. And that's actually what I'm here to talk about today. And so, like, the same kind of like system error that has a reading that says, oh, take his, AIDS cure and give it to Trump. Okay, the same method would say, oh, let's get a different group of analysts in here that would, because they have a fresh start and they're starting from, ground, from like, okay, the previous recording, that was an epiphany and an apex when we're associating, oh, wait, maybe, the living of this generation, that's why all this, things of the rainbow is changing. Okay, that's a universal effect. And on every world in the entire universe, they're seeing a totally different rainbow. And to them, it's very shocking, but I can explain to you now what's going on. And so we need to sort of bring ourselves to a place where we can have an epiphany or a discovery. And so respect yourself. And when you're like, I have really a deep understanding of this, and we're working together, okay? You need to respect yourself because the self fractal is operated off of identity. So when you're having an epiphany, this isn't an indication that you're having a meltdown. It's an indication that you're onto something. And I want to also say the thing with I was talking about Strawberry City. And this thing, that's not actually an indication that you guys are completely bad. It's actually an indication that you're finding results. Like you guys put like a codec tag on Strawberry City, and then there was a shooting at a garlic festival by a handsome young man. I mean, like this is like sort of a seminal level of communication or an epiphany. And so it's not that you guys are completely tilt or whatever. In fact, I see divinity in you, and I want to explain to you about my shield erupting and going to the size of the planet, and also the rainbow transform. And I have a proposal for you, the government. And you might say, what you're talking about isn't exactly what we do. Okay, well, guess what? You got to bring it to that level, Buster. You understand? Junior? You need to do the adult thing, not the thing where you're like, we're building a case to hurt or criminalize this person, only criminalize. Okay, that would be a mistake. And bringing in some sort of like different group, like, oh, this is more important than we thought. And so get some fresh faces on it. How they're going to go through all the hours of footage that we've done? Malarkey. Identity identity and person, respect it, and respect the professional opinion of those who are actually informed and have had osmosis through the days and are working on this case, actually. But I got to tell you, after yesterday's recording, I felt this huge relief like, oh man, I hit the nail on the head because I think that that's actually where something's verklempt. And it might have even been like like, like my plan or what I was working on was getting halted because our own government is going achoo, achoo, and having like a head cold. All right, but we are the intelligence, and we have to be the adults, and we have to understand our system and ourselves and our country, and do what's right for all systems and sides, and that's what we're going to do. So, first of all, as far as presentation goes, I do believe my behavior is perfect. Like if I'm sort of scattered and I go like da 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 and see how these things connect, and then you guys have an epiphany. But if I'm like, oh, Mr. Senior, basic, and well, we do what's right under God and this and that, and people just start going like, right, right, okay, so what's this? So let's look at some chemicals now, like, meh, meh. You're gonna play around with the anatomy of what I'm talking about is actually the father and the precursor of. All right, so that's what I'm talking about is a superior intensity, and that's why you need to kind of armor yourself up and prepare yourself for an encounter. And the people who have been working on this case, they're showing up to work and they're walking down the hall and there'll be other people there, and out of the corner of the people's eye they'll notice someone who's working on this case. It just have like a glowing aura, and their head is all lit up with like a halo, and they're just like, oh, I got to get to work, a normal everything day thing. But you guys, you wouldn't like notice that. I'm just saying, okay, the earth and the self fractal is aware of which one of you is a superhero and anointed to perform the peace, to perform, to end all wars and bring enlightenment to our country. And this isn't selling anything short. Well, maybe I am. It's even more than that because we're talking about an epiphany of the universe. But I'm not. I'm trying to not overwhelm it. As far as my performance, some people would say, "Oh, but it seems like he's like this." Well, that's how you get to a place where you have a spontaneous idea, because the system of a down and a hack is a depression and an anxiety that it weighs on us, weighs on the entire bulk of the people. And the problem is that when someone does try to stand up and do something really smart, they get hammered down, okay? Because of, like you said, the remote hack, tags. The remote hack is using locator tags and general specifics like it, and it shouldn't. It shouldn't be able to do that. And so like what I'm trying to say is I'm counter building, I'm reverse engineering the evidence and understanding that the government is wise to what is weird about remote hacking. They're like, okay, so that style, of hacking is not cool. And oh, this guy better not be doing that. Well, I agree, and I'm not doing that. Okay, because I also know that that doesn't work. But we're at such a place of like in history, we're at such a place where like a conversation, like right now, a conversation is possible. So that's startling. But in a couple years, it would be like what I'm talking about is common sense, and people are like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We're the self-fractal planet. So we really just want to dig deep in ourselves and say, wow, it's time for me to be a hero and perform my work for my country, making our country safe and secure. And we all have those sorts of human concerns, which are actually the correct sort of universal self control masteries. Um, all right, so I'm not here to tell jokes. I'm here to actually make a serious proposal. And I'm going to try to explain myself using references that I've already had. So the people who are familiar with my work, they need to be the ones understanding because they have the decoder ring where they could actually, we could make some progress here. So I'm just going to go ahead and start talking like that, all right? Okay, so basically, the gatekeeper, the Leverett circle, summoned the perception of the self-fractal. And the self-fractal function is illustrative. And so, in a sense, it was that the first task of my life was to grow up or become an adult professional or a gentleman. But my primary function with life was hacked brutally. And basically, this diamond hack is the false interpretation of the self-fractal. And we're in such a chapter from 1980s till the Straight Rainbow, where we're talking about that this is a season of or a chapter of the self-fractal, which technically cannot be accessed by those guys, and they have no interpretation power over us. And yet they're trying to force that thing on their interpretation on us. But the reality is that America and Earth had finally, achieved the summoning of that gatekeeper, and so this sort of orb of light, which is a different frequency of light, which can be detected by the sun and the earth, and they're like, oh, and it's sort of just, oh, it feels good, just this energy that I brought, and it's sort of like what I was the trove of every answer. And you'd be like, what? You know what I mean? The trove of every answer. It's because the answers ultimately come from the fathers of these icons in the triangle. The Boston Triangle would contain all of the prime source code answers, and sort of like rolling, just like answers would just whoop, whoop, whoop. It would just sort of like zip up. You understand? Because of the way that time is orchestrated. So time is very life based, but that makes it also good. But that also means it could get hurt. So like, oh, is it a problem that I'm here? Is it a problem that Earth is here? And so these remote hackers, they're against the life pattern that would have caused their own uh, salvation. Okay, and they attacked their own answer and sort of uh, self-evidently removed themselves from the situation because they were a congestion. But now is a time when, like, we have basically the adults who are born before 1980 are these people who have a sort of yoke of Jesus Christ, and they're like, be good, they have like this basic stuff. And so we need to be like a little bit more advanced and be like, hey, in my observation of my own kids, like they're so smart, and I don't even remember me and my siblings being as smart as my kids are. Is it because they have a touch tablet? It's because of many things, okay? First of all, they're not born with the yoke of the before the apocalypse thing. And so if we're talking about raising America, then we're on the same page. If we're talking about making the future brighter for our children, then we're on the same page. That's absolutely the work that needs to happen here. The trouble with putting just a locator tag on like Strawberry City and be like, oh, is he using like, positioning and dot matrix to do this? I'd be like, Omega Pan means make the future brighter. And what are you going to put a locator tag on that and try to like diffuse it? Like, oh, let's not make the future brighter. Okay, so that obviously that's not going to work. You use general specifics and say, true love is the answer. Wow, you're not going to put a tag on that, and then some kid in California shoots up the garlic festival, and that's not a distraction from what we're talking about. Okay, so you guys put a tag on Strawberry City to see if I was doing hacking, and what happened is evidence where like sort of the beautiful and so a beautiful young man like shoots up at a garlic festival. This is like communication or a result, like you guys did something and then there was a result, but you're not criminal. And this person, okay, and then also like my problem, I realized that the Kennedy that died in Massachusetts, that's actually probably more aimed at me, and in the expression, because woman with her X chromosomes, she's kind of psychic about Mother Nature. Okay, so it's a communication, and she was also very beautiful. So both of these are were like we're reaching into an epiphany of like communication, and we can transcend into robots and AI. But we need to be completely intelligent, and that means like a very advanced scenario um, about cooperation here, about working together as professionals. And I'm talking about an agreement where I would be able to have access to uh, basically a working space, and I'd be able to have, the help that I need in order to perform my communication. And I understand that, whatever the group is that is receiving this, whether it's the CIA or whoever, you need to be like really conscious about that and be like, oh, that's not really our department. So then I'm asking you basically to transcend and be like, oh, this is a lot of work. This isn't like we can simply, call him some name and just get him into trouble and so that he can't speak or whatever. Okay, so I understand the epiphany of like releasing a communication is like, oh, that's not what we do. But I'm also saying in exchange, I would work with you to have your own primordial uh, source code. And that would be so what would that look like? So I wanted to say a couple things, and I was sort of working up to this, and I also need to talk about the, uh, how what the rainbow is different now. So the rainbow is different, and the rainbow is different for everyone in the universe. So we need to be responsible for that and go to a place where we're talking about it. But I did want to make it clear about what I'm talking about here, and like sort of the mind shift that needs to happen. Is it's not like there's not a standard issue. You guys aren't expected to actually find an answer which you would think about actually employing or doing anything with, but you're only a group that seeks to like, exterminate, little voices that you find. And this is sort of a disturbing trend that I found where, you know, it's sort of like you guys put a locator tag on me, and then like a lot of my friends started getting canceled or injured, and that's not okay. But I think we're transcending to a point where, the garlic thing and the Massachusetts Kennedy death, these two things are like sort of a clarification where we're no longer simply using a hydrofracking, computer to, okay, so is it a problem that I'm here? So you found my name, you figured out who I am. Is that the problem? Is it a problem that Earth is here? So don't be like the Diamond Hack program, because the Diamond Hack program is basically telling you the false interpretation of your own planet. And it's only telling you, do not do what the correct function of the planet and the self fractal is, which would be to communicate with the gatekeeper unmet. I had to be born an innocent child so that the universe wasn't a hypocrisy. However, so I became a professional, and at that time, I was working actually, and I had these circular tin, in roofing. There's like a tin thing, and you put a nail in it. Well, there's a circle. It's a circular tin thing, and so I bought like a box of them, and I put my fingerprint on it, and then I'd bite it, and I was going around, and I was actually working with sort of rivers. Actually, I would toss them into a river and I'd bless the water and I'd say clarify the mind and stuff. I was traveling around, right? I was actually driving around, and the first time I looked up at the sky and I saw that that the rainbow had broken and there was an inverted rainbow and that the rainbow had gone like this. I was like, "Oh shit." And I pulled over right then and I go out in this in a field and I'm looking at the sky and I'm like, "Oh no, no, no," because I knew what it meant. It meant that um I was about to die. Because that is the physical property of what would happen if the first orb of the self fractal incarnate was to perish without finding the champion wizards of Earth. Okay, it would go like that. And so I was like, oh shit. And so I got out of my car and I bit one of these tin snips things, and I put it into like a little cabbage. It was like a skunk cabbage that not in the vegetable patch. It was on the side of the road. There was like a skunk cabbage, and I put it in there, and I'm just like, oh God. And I sort of sent my avalanche, my a sort of thing at the rainbow. I said, no, no, don't do that. And I did actually. And the next day I looked at, and there was just the single rainbow had returned. And I was like, oh my God, phew. But then, like, not only just like a day later, boom, it was back again like this. And I was like, fuck, shit. And so I was like, oh no. And so I was working and I got like really more and more intense about what I was working on. And there were like these sort of little phenomenon. Oh, I shouldn't say little. I did see a miracle, and that was but it was actually a chew of the universe. The universe was like a chew, and like showing me like these little funny things like, oh, that's a hallucination, or whoops, that's a misplaced value. Okay, so I've seen like all the different types of errors because the universe was like, when I showed up, the universe was like, oh, oh, like an old person, just like, oh, oh, and so it's really upsetting, but very sobering. Okay, so that's welcome to the show. I mean, this is the climate that I became a professional within. So basically, the sign in the sky, it's not biblical actually, because the I'll try to explain, you guys. So the things we're talking about does not make the past irrelevant, but it seems that the work of the people of the past didn't actually achieve what we needed to complete the scenario and bring peace to the thing. But we're talking about peace bringing. All right. And it's, design and identity is the solution, not the problem. And so it's not about hacking, and it's not about mind control or possession. It's about being yourself, respecting yourself, and initiating the work of your hands, design. And then we can explain through interheliospheric space a type of hypercode, which is technology based, but just like consistent. And then they get the message that, oh, those guys are all set. We've achieved our goal. Yeah, whatever. Oh, sorry. I'm not a big fan of being shot at by a diamond laser from these guys who don't understand the correct function of Earth and the self fractal. But it's like these guys actually attacked Earth very badly, and it gave them a sort of guilt complex because there wasn't anywhere else for them to go in the universe. This is like the one oasis in the Earth is the holy planet, the one oasis in the entire universe. But the Pilgrim chapter failed, and so there's no longer like an intelligent reason for alien ships to be coming here. Okay, so what we can do is usher in the future and make the future brighter. And so I want to explain sort of what was the clarification here. Okay, so I was working really hard and it started to get weird. There was actually this a person who was frequenting like walk like they're sorry. All right, so just weird stuff was happening and it was just like closing in all around me. And it was like, okay, so I had to tumble out, and so I broke some public property, and I got arrested, and I just told them the truth about why I was doing that, and they told me I was crazy, and they put me in the asylum. When I was in the asylum, I started doing an internal work where I designed that basically I was designing to make it appear as though that I had perished, but I would actually continue to live. And so that was successful, and my orb exploded, but in the realms of divine design, which is what we have here. I'm a divine person. You guys are divine people. You are my peer group. You're not, you know, you're not, you're not random, and you're not simple creatures. You're actually the most advanced creatures in the universe. Okay, and you are my family. Okay, because of gravity, because of clockwork, Earth has ordained that the most intelligent people would be here now. So it's supposed to be like a big wizard party when all these, finally, the child of next light arrives, and the wizards educate and teach him all this stuff. That all that didn't happen, and I've only been mistreated and hacked. My family was hacked. Everything I got, like it was, and until the point where I was like, oh, I'm on solo. I'm just a private researcher, and I had to avoid that stuff because people would get frazzled. I'd like go to try to talk to someone and they'd like freak out and they'd be like, what? Because they're having like an epiphany, like this is, this is the guy who's been giving me weird dreams and stuff. And I'm like, dude, these people don't understand themselves, or like you're having an epiphany because I'm a very powerful person or something. Don't lose your shit like that. But they'd be like, no, I am just a simple person. No, no, oh, and they would run, and so it was like very lonely for me. Okay, so one of the things I had to do in the asylum was create an appropriate and lock and key wife of my own, and so that was my true love encounter, and that's actually, it did cure my sort of feeling about myself, and I'm a much happier person now, and I think that is important. Okay, I'm completely happy, and before I was like very quite uh upset, but not disturbed, I think. And that's what also disturbs people is they see it and they're like, this guy is so intense, you know. Well, I was doing the best I could, but I was very lonely in a real way. And the earth was like, oh, and that hurt the earth because earth was like, oh, these people. Um, but we can actually fix this thing, and I'm going to talk about that now. Sorry, excuse me. So remember the straight line rainbow, and the earth is coming along like this. And so basically what happened is like Earth was like this, and there was this like orb of light there, and it was just sort of like, what? Oh, and so when my orb exploded, there's only more evidence of divine reason and orientation that comes from even a corpse of an angel, right? So for your education, you understand where we are. Anyway, the evidence of that my orb didn't like, fly off and leave us, it's like, oh, it's going away, we'll see you, in the afterlife. No, 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 no. It went boop and just like covered the world because Earth is the holy planet, which means that we are number one in the entire universe. Okay, now that is our authority. And when we wield ourselves and perform design, anatomy, and self, then all of the systems start zipping up, and everything gets healthy and better. So, any sorts of climates that are okay, anything that looks like, oh, this is really bad, it's actually, we just need to communicate and work with the pan, and then you guys can have the dominion and the leadership, which cures all these little problems. But you guys need to be really advanced about this and say, basically, how we behave with this guy is really important. And so we don't want to attack him or intimidate him. And I'm telling you this as a friend. On the personal, like, okay, never mind that. So, from yesterday's recording, I thought like, that those were some big items, and the temptation for you guys, I think, is to say, "Oh, we already know about that. We already know about that. What's it mean to us?" So here I am, I'm talking about what's it mean to you. So essentially what happened is a clarification of the time travel function between now and the straight rainbow epiphany. Now, the straight rainbow going across, that's like a signal flare of hope. And it appears that in the distant future, what had to happen is a time travel Vic, where they actually drop their stuff and go out of their mind and travel back in time to the time when that straight rainbow was, and we all work together to make it happen. Like, and we had like a wizard moment, and but it could only be sustained. Well, it was actually there for a long time, but long enough for everyone to see it, and that gave the universe hope. And now they're like, "Oh, it's not a disaster; it's design, it's organization. They're fighting, yay, yay, yay!" And they're all like in their own worlds, worshiping and stuff. And you guys are sitting in your little computers, being like, "This guy looks suspicious. Is there some sort of frequency here?" Okay, but you need to respect yourself. And I'm not putting you down, just have some contrast. Other planets are like basically worshiping what's happening here, and I'm working on solo, and I'm still unmet. No one has the intelligence to communicate with me correctly, because that's exactly what the diamond hack is telling you not to do. They're saying, do not perform that wizard encounter. It's not for you, it's for us. But they were immature about the investment of colonizing the earth appropriately and surviving in a generation as a family, and then allowing the child of their distant future to inherit the kingdom. And that's the entire story of the universe, is about parenting your children and giving them a brighter future, etc. Caring, like having emotional intelligence about time and orientation about where you are. So they had space fever. They came in, they demolished it, and with like the guilt of the worst crime ever, they just sort of went around and like blew up the orange planet. Oh yeah, that'll help. You can see in a depiction of notes that the orange frequency is in a position in contrast to the blue note that explains that the orange band is the codec of blue uh, love, basically, or the documentation of love. It gets recorded in the orange band, which is weird because the yellow band is sort of like when things are being, peed out. You pee, it's yellow, and it's so orange is like this weird catch that then grabs onto blue, because yellow is the opposite of blue. So blue in the sky is like an angel, and then yellow is sort of like things that were get peed out. But then there's orange, which sort of is like, oh, that's the memory of the past, like a memory. Like, okay, so so each of us are actually, angels of light, and by respecting ourselves, we can make progress and understand how to parent better this universe. So um, we actually, this is actually really good news. I mean, the gatekeeper is still alive and active and able to ascribe the identity, and that's going to be the healthiest thing for this universe. The universe model has caused the summoning of myself, and the universe model has decided that I'm the one to do this thing. And so for a lot of people, they say, well, I don't want to believe in what he's saying because that would be me giving him too much power and authority. Well, then you're strictening yourself and you won't talk to me. And so then you will have no power or authority. You understand? That's karma, like you're screaming in a mirror. But this is an issue of heightened voices. This is a time to be angry and be powerful and fight for this communication agenda, this epiphany. I mean, I'm sensing that the government is sort of, as a system, sort of built against itself. I have no problem with working with the government. That would actually be a dream come true and true love. But I think you guys know your system, and you're like, we don't really do that stuff. Uh-oh. Well, there's your problem. And the reason why I was working with, you know, communication wizards from California, but they've got a head cold and they can't handle the intensity of wizard ascension. Oh, it's me? I'm the cure? They have an immaturity on the inside, which doesn't allow them to do appropriate investments and communications, which is a slump of the communication industry, a slump of the financial industry. We're better than this. but I'm not going to give up on Trey Parker. And but he has done absolutely nothing wrong and has not communicated with me, or he's not making me do this anyway. So basically, when my orb exploded and the universe broke, and there's an inverted rainbow, and then this mirrored rainbow of that's like basically um, it's basically an image from the straight rainbow event from the future when we actually cross it. And so when we cross it and we get that, you know, center line and we align with the earth, and then it's sent back in time to us an image, a beacon of hope, the straight rainbow sign. But of course, the humans were in a funk and they were, they didn't understand it and they were protesting with their behavior. Okay. And they had no recognition with that the rainbow changing like that was actually terrifying. Or like, oh no, what do you mean that did the orb child die? Is that what that means? You know. And so, when I did explode my orb, it was like, oh my gosh, this is so bad that Robin Williams committed suicide because he's sort of like we're not actually speaking appropriately. Oh my God, and so he sort of paid the final word. Understand? So I was trying to honor him and reconnect with the Aaron thread and understand humanity in this sort of way and be like, okay, all right, you're trying, you love, all right, let's go. All right. So I don't even want to stop that. My name is Randolph Pan Williams and I'm running for Green Party, Green Wolf elect. All right. Let's have some clarity here and understand our issue. So I've never been a hacker, but my resonance is detected by the entire universe. Everything in the universe can sense some information from my existence. And so I'm not surprised that your computer chatbot or whatever has detected a pattern, but you don't just start hydrofracking that and then some of my friends start wilting and falling down. It's not cool. But now you have your evidence. And so you're like, oh, I found some results, but it doesn't mean criminalize this person. And if you abandon the progress we've made in our research and hand this over to another department that doesn't shirk that you stole the cure for AIDS and gave it to the Trump, which was criminal on the Earth. Earth is connected to me in a big way, and Earth is just like, oh God, that is not okay. And so then, boom, like this thing happens, and we can all understand what Earth is saying, that Trump is a tool. Okay, but that had to happen to like crack open a can of whoop ass and get yourself in a position where you can be proactive and raise this child. So I want you to work with me and let's fight together and raise up this child, all right? It's awesome and it's exciting, it's passionate and it's powerful. It's alive and it's the relevance of Earth. It's the primordial original function of Earth and it belongs to America. Okay, Massachusetts arm and the Boston Triangle has always stood there as the sort of hope of Earth. Earth has always been like, looking at that and seeing how the stone is different all around there because the impression that my arrival made caused the permanent, like the static constant of the arm of Cape Cod was actually the keystone for arriving spaceships to understand their orientation with the self-fractal, which like the spaceship technology would be having this slow, dreamy, transcendent thing between starlight and going like, oh, what is life? Because the technology, a self-driving ship would be the right way to do that, and then awakening and crew on the other side. But there was a haunted ship and things went south really badly. So basically the idea of inviting the technology or seed identity of the universe failed and like black hole decay starts rising up. But this is all sort of things that are just like there only to preserve the hope of light that we instill, hatch the heliosphere eggs. And that what we are, we're these basic little, okay, this is the beginning, yeah, but we're little robots. So have some self-control, control your hands, do the, intelligent thing here. And I'm not asking for you to go off the deep end with faith. That's not how it works. You have to believe in yourself and have an idea. All right. So the universe was like, and I was sort of walking around and getting abused and injured in my life. And the universe was kind of like, oh, hatch, the Earth wasn't able to say hatch the heliosphere eggs, but because because we weren't saying it, it was like there was this crumpling effect where there was lights out scenario where like Earth gets devastated or Earth whatever. We had to call in we went to Plan B. You understand? And so Plan B brought like a clarification. That straight rainbow, that's like whoa, that's a huge angel, and that's sort of this Plan B dummy light on the dashboard. And of course, humanity sort of feels like guilty, so they're just kind of like stupid and they don't know why that is there. Meanwhile, everyone else in the universe is like worshiping and being excited, and they're really excited about the event, and they're trying to represent themselves. Okay, the black hole decay sort of halted the excitement of the remote hackers who are like, "Oh, I'm on to it now. I found you. I found the name. I've gotten results from stalking the holy planet, and you've got an evil karma." Okay, this is what happened. It's like the forgiveness of Christ didn't work out, and so it went into karma of Buddha. And it's like, well, karmically speaking, you guys are down here and we're way up here. There's no way that you have dominion over this light. And that's fact on science and everything else. So there was a clarification, then the deadlights rose, you know, sort of reset the cosmos, because the universe, if the universe was like this big, like the issue of like an infection is like this big, this little tiny pocket where they're aiming like diamond laser beams and their hate meditation, and they got probes in the moon, and they're like meow, 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 they're all like doing their hate meditation, trying to disturb the correct function of life. Because they were physically in a position where they are, anti-life expression in the interheliosphere space, performing stalking and laser. They're like, but and the government knows. They're like, well, we have some aliens, and we have it's okay, but it's not okay. Okay, because that's not the appropriate family unit, and you guys never encountered the guy in a giant glow of the next level of light, heaven light. Okay, so they're saying that they are the government of aliens, and then they have like you have like little underground things with aliens. That's not the solution, and you're not connecting with the self-fractal function, the arm of Cape Cod, the Boston Triangle, and the Leverett fetus. And it's like my whole ascension has prepared me for this moment. Okay, so when I was working in my studio in Leverett, I was watching this footage of the self fractal. I'm zooming, it zooms through the self fractal, and then all of a sudden, like, but you have to go through the right. If you travel there's all these different ways of traveling through the self fractal. And there's only one path that leads you to the keystone image of the arm of Cape Cod, the Triangle Boston, and the Leverett fetus, and with the wolf uh, icon coming out there too. You understand? And so, like, it was very specific and divine that I even found that keystone image, which I was like, oh, that overlaps with this. And this is sort of like, I think it's like a ghost from the Atlantic tower, the original beacon. These people were conservatives because they were like, most planets are just kind of muddy, blotchy things, but here on Earth, they have specific images. This is a dedication of identity, which means that we were in the remote future successful in achieving permanent stasis identity into the self fractal, which is the ascension. They understood it back then, but I'm talking to you guys and you think you're like some sort of, oh, you're wise to it. All right. So let's clue in right now. Like what we're doing is basically the most advanced work that we can do in the entire planet. So respect yourself because you've arrived. And you guys are my family, my peer group. Gravity and clockwork is ordained it. So Earth is also on the edge of his seat, and he's not going to be giving you guys earthquakes. He's saying, well, you guys understand, right? Look, I mean, here, yeah, okay. So um, essentially a clarification of things. The straight rainbow is like a time travel from when we achieve the thing, which is like an image of what I'm talking about, like images in the map. And I can hear people saying like, "Can you do that voice again with the Atlantic Tower?" Like those people really sound great. Yeah. So I think like a little bit of karma clarification helped me to actually find the ascension where I even was able to put together my own, you know, identity code or whatever, my own evidence. Okay, so it's not like I just there was this one video that had the exact coordinates that led exactly to the keystone image that is on the self fractal. And there's also, oh, okay. Well, in the self fractal, it's illustrative, and there's like an image of a good butler who's going like this with a platter, and I got some signs that they're saying like, oh, the universe is Plan B, like we already know that you're the good butler, and there's like a huge statue there, telling me that I'm here to, raise up the family and do the right thing. And the problem I did mention yesterday is that the government is is not is a system, and it would need like a pilot or a champion in order to do that. But they're not actually oriented to do that, which is why I was working with celebrity. Okay. But the reason I'm communicating with you today is because I have a solution for that, and we can work on it together. If you can have the enlightenment to do what's appropriate and good. So we are friends. Treat Pan as a very, celebrity, respect and all that. Do that, and you'll be fine. And I respect all the work that you guys have already done, and but I'm saying you're absolutely justified to get upset and all this. Okay, and understand yourself in the time and things are a little bit jargon and shaken, but sometimes you need to like piece it together and be like, oh, like this little piece of information that goes there and that ties together, and now I understand. So, you know, let's armor up and let's talk about the solution. So the onions that did the clarification, the deadlights rose. That's just an immune system reaction and sort of a cosmic reset, and is arranging that this ascension I'm talking about right now could now be possible. That this is now possible. That we're having this communication. Like I am addressing you guys and inviting you to work with me at the earliest time that I could possibly do so. So basically, we are still, because I'm alive. And if you would respect the witness of my eyes, you would understand that the keystone is still relevant and the completed identity is yet unmarred because of my living. Like I am alive and I'm still here and I'm operating with you. And that's what sustains that it's possible that the government could have its own fractal icon, which would allow it. to have, total clairvoyance over the entire universe. And the reality of the self-fractal is that it is a flat dimensional uh, image, which is basically infinite. And so the entire government system with all its departments and wings would only need one icon to achieve complete and full mastery. And what I'm suggesting is, because I have done work with the self-fractal, and I have already prepared over 600 icons. I think it's closer to like 800. But I'd actually have to go and count them all. But ever since I left the hospital, the asylum, I was with my true love coupling, and because of that, I was able to then template as if I've died. I was able to template and render the solution. And so I've stabilized the situation, and we're now in a season where I could perform this thing with the government. And what you guys could do, technically, is you could build sort of a super computer or robot, an idol, that represents all facets of the government into one location. And I would, make all the permanent things and do all the things to make that be the government idol. And then you guys would have total authority over the rest of the world. And this is not something I could do for other countries because of Massachusetts. Massachusetts has residency with America. And so they have every right to pioneer in robots and AI. But what we'd also need is the catalyst of the Green Wolf as a president, which would create a transformation. And I understand what you guys are thinking. You're like, wow, uh, multitasking. So like this, and this. Yes, those like three different things. Okay, but it's huge. Yeah, it's huge, but that's who we are. And this is our birthright, and Earth wants this to happen. And you guys need to go up to a place where you're like, okay, this is sort of a different we would have to think about this in a little bit of a different way, other than like, oh, we stole the cure for AIDS from him. So that's where you guys are right now. Your epiphany is like you steal the cure for AIDS from Japan and you give it to Trump, and then you're like, oh, maybe we should now criminalize this person. Okay, because you've done something wrong. Like when the when those when the Atlantic Tower was attacked, they had like this dirty karma, and they went around like doing more and more crimes on their way out. And it's so obvious. And I'm looking around being like, wow, this is a crime scene. And so you guys need to not be 454 diamond hacked by the remote hackers. You need to not do the same thing. You already have done the same thing. And you have like this guilt complex. And you're like, oh, maybe if we build up a case and arrest him, that will solve the problem. No, it won't. And so this would have to be like, whoa, we have to like be really smart and cure the situation, that, work hard and work with our hands. Okay, but what does that mean? It means that what I'm talking about is like I need I need a workspace. Okay? I need a space to make my communications, and each of my communications could be pre-approved, and the you guys could say, well, no suspicious, we that's fine, because I'm not going to be saying things that are weird to people. So this could be government approved stuff. I'm saying, like, you'd be like, oh, impasse. No, there's solutions here, not impasses. If you want to talk about enlightenment, about how AI and computers work, how does the universe work, I'm on an atomic level of size, which is beyond anything technological or electric, any of these things. I am atomic already. I was born atomic. And so if you guys want to go to that level where you're mastering your robots and AI and performing a government system of America that actually is relevant and tuned in to what our solar system is talking about, then this is it. And it simply requires a communication and a dedication. And you don't need to we can begin on a certain level and work. It's going to be work, but it has to be human made and use our hands. That's our 5-4-5 handmade technology. And so this idol I'm talking about, you guys making, I would suggest it be, only human grade level technology stuff. And that would be way more effective if you're using like an old engine type. And I think the people who are meditating right now are like, yeah, our department does not have alien computers, okay? Well, there's a little while ago. All right, never mind. It's like my whole life has been a series of like an education where on one side I'm like receiving like the confessions of a universe is like, oh, I literally, and just like doing its little thing so that I have orientation. But then at the same time, there's these weird signs where the government was doing stupid stuff, and I'm not even going to go through and rehash that. But what I'm talking about would organize the entire American government bloc, and you could have a sort of uh, it would create its own DNA. It would create its own DNA, which could be reflected in the light or whatever. But it would be universal, and then it would be held to karma. And then it wouldn't be tempted to do anything wrong. Or if like you typed in a program response, it would probably give you the appropriate reaction because it has to be karmically responsible and have that perception. And so I know it's hard to understand because from 1980 until my orb exploded, it was extremely adult, and that was the apocalypse. The good news is the apocalypse is over. Wow. And we can that's awesome. But that was extremely adult, and the ascension path was so difficult. It was like you'd have to be an extreme wizard to understand, like, oh, we need to talk to this guy and work with him in order to get our own, um, enlightenment access package. All right, that didn't happen. It did not happen. And while I was on my computer and stuff, I was doing some troubleshooting, and I was like, you know, you, you know, uh, uh, analyzing the situation on Earth, and sort of, the church had a problem at you, okay, and there was a problem, and you can see how the body of Christ was the prime was Plan A, and I think the church is all scattered and it has all these different facets now. I think because the body of Jesus is doing something a little different about evidence. But it has Scientology and it has this dangerous thing and it has that dangerous thing. That doesn't mean that those things are being used to access children. It might be that you understand, boom, like because it's like the wet bandits. Oh, you're coming in through Scientology? Nope. No, not going to happen. So you just have to believe that, the handmade stuff from humanity is going to have some common sense about that. But we're still suffering with evidence. People will die just for a word of evidence. That's not okay. We need to be more intelligent than that. We need to be enlightened. And so that's who I believe I'm speaking with now. And so let's respect ourselves and say, if I'm going to be honest about this, like I feel excitement and I feel truth. I feel recognition with my life. Like when I've been working on this series of videos with myself, Master Source, performing and all this stuff, I've had like the greatest epiphany in my life where I'm recognizing myself, and it might be because of you guys, which is awesome. But like, that's normal because the self fractal deals with the actual self. And so people would be like, "Oh, deja vu from when I was like a kid." What? No, but that's not hacking. It's not. It's just you're having you're yourself and you're having an epiphany. It's not that you're being hacked. Okay? So that's important. So, if you're going to be a powerful advocate for your government and yourself, and you want the best thing for America, and you want the best thing for Earth, and you want all that, then you need to be truthful, and you need to talk in the ways of light, the words and terms of family values, be a hero, and common sense. True love is the answer. Okay, because that's how I was completed, is I identified that I was the only orb male and there was no orb female. And so I needed to do this thing, and that caused a template which allowed for, basically this ascension where if my body did perish, that I could auto self-complete the entire self-fractal uh, locations. But I'm not dead and I'm still here. And the self-fractal contains, I think, um, like a million at least, like a million of these icons of the fetus icon. And I can explain to you how this function works, why it's appropriate, why it works, uh, you know, um, but it is the pattern that turned into immortality or that transcended math. And so the self fractal is beyond math. And we're at the season when, if we correctly populate the self fractal icons, then math itself redoubles and starts telling multiple levels of chi about the answers to everything. And it just zips up like that, okay? And so this is a huge thing, but what does it entail? You could say, okay, we want a certain amount of information from this wizard expert, and we're willing to do an exchange with him, as long as we're gonna make sure he's not saying anything spooky. Well, that's fine. Um, but he's gonna be doing his independent thing where he's talking, okay, and running for president. But that's sort of the epiphany of America, that it's okay for people to run for president. Or there's a freedom thing there about, and freedom of speech, etc. And so if you guys could just be a little more enlightened and constructive, say we want to work with this research expert, and what he needs is a laboratory and materials. It's not like I'm even looking. All right, I'm looking. Look, I want to get to work. I'm get him to work for us, get him on our side, get to work. It's like military, like bo 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 bo, go go go. Boom, that is the epiphany. But you want to understand about presentation and communication, that you're not attacking this person and that you're being appropriate in view of why this is powerful. You'd be like, well, this is powerful because it relates to a higher energy and super source code. Yeah, but that doesn't mean attack this guy. You need to be mature and say, whoa, 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 okay, we are adults. I understand he's saying we have a universe image, so we're each like a little image of the universe. We're relevant, we're part of this. And oh, here's the government system, and what's it doing? It's stealing the cure for AIDS from Japan without honor and giving it to the dishonorable tool of Trump. And so all the people are looking at Trump and they're saying the cure for AIDS come from that direction. Oops, whoopsie. That's really very bad. But we're still here. We're in control. Hold on. Okay, so here's the system. All right, it's my baby. It's a big system, but I am a strong man. I'm a powerful, intelligent man, and I'm gonna go, headbutt, boop, and I'm just gonna take care of this. All right, I'm just gonna take care of this, and I'm gonna bring it all the way to the other side. All right, and we're just gonna work with this scientist, and he just needs a working space, and in his schedule of making his presentations, I just need budgeting for my animation presentation. And inside of that, we can get all of the intel and all the cooperation that we need. And so that would be awesome, because you're going to get sour fruits if you attack the vessel. The Earth is sort of monitoring my progress and behaves in this way. And so it's not just me that is defending myself. There's other things going on here. But while I was working on the self fractal in my studio for the past 4 or 5 years, I did create this. Well, to begin with, it was the fathers of the next step. So, father of the next step, father of the next step, because it was so complicated. But if you were a full wizard, it is possible, if you were self-fractal active, to send out an angel fairy of yourself and sort of bring it back to yourself. Okay, so that's actually not complicated for me to do. But what I did manage to do was build technologically adapt characters who had the anatomy and the understanding, but then the sort of aura manifold that could operate on a technological level. And so there is the potential now where it wasn't before, because the government didn't have its own idol systems. It doesn't have heroes that are like, oh, that's our champion guy. Okay, because we're not an alien community. We're like the meek who inherit the garden. Okay, it's like plan B. And so that's totally natural. But right now, you guys could have your own, like, super robot idol that has a wing for every facet of your government and prioritizes properly, and would take all of your information and comprise it into a single American super government technology advanced, whatever it is that you guys want it to do. So that is now possible, whereas it wasn't before. And so I hope you could understand that I've put a lot of work into this and I'm addressing you with true love. And I feel it. I feel like when I'm talking with you guys, I feel a great amount of encouragement and chi. I think you guys are very engaged and healthy and on the edge. You know, you're really smart, and you're very supportive, and you're helping me to have like clarity about my mind and about what's possible and everything. So, I mean, that's really my presentation to you. I just feel like I would like to, clarify. It's like you might say, well, the government system doesn't really, you know, uh, it doesn't. We don't help people to uh, to communicate through like this. This is all different. I know it's different. It's different, but that. Okay, all right. Oh, okay, okay, okay. Let's just say, like, okay, we've got the clean parchment. You and me, you guys. Completion. Okay. Oh, we understand. Wow. I had an epiphany. Wow. Yeah, yeah. We'll write it down. Yeah. Just feel it. It's okay. So there's that. Yay, yay, woo. A little bit of completion. That's where I was sort of like, can we just can we just say that's it? Because that is that I think you guys understand the idea now. So, all right, let's talk about like moral laws. Like, is it moral for us to, you know, pay for the information? Like, if you just understand, or this is a scientist, we want to purchase information from him and have a relationship with him, and then on his own accord, he was running for president already when we met him, and so he's doing something on his own, but it's not government. We're not causing his thing. And in fact, if even if I'm running for president, I'm not making it absolute definite that I'll win. And so it really will be a great effort for me, but also, you know, I'm hoping to enlighten humanity and America and the world and everything just with the communication of my run. And this would help to alleviate sort of a depression and a system of down, and increase like basically the family values of the common sense of the household, making the true love force of every parent who's wants the best thing for their child becomes the gravity and the force that is preventing bad things from happening. So that when I communicate, it brings up the enlightenment. People get empowered because they're suddenly, really, literally, much better informed. And just with that is what I'm talking about. But can you guys imagine how we can actually increase our government and update our systems and have the funding and not worry about it if we have a green wolf in office and cracks open the dollar with the golden statues. Okay, then we have the funding to support really advanced work and really get to work on our robots and AI. America pioneering in it, absolutely. I love America. Jimmy Stewart, you guys are beautiful and you're passionate. You've done a great job. The censorship on the alien stuff is perfect. I would have done the same thing because you allowed Americans to awaken in the glow of just getting to know each other. Oh, there's this there and there. And so you guys have done a great job raising up this child in a big way. This is like a karmic reward from the sun because America has always been loving and not hateful. And that is true. It's true love. All right, so let's talk about the moral law within. Okay, well, first of all, armor yourself up, okay, because we want to be protected. And sometimes, as a spiritual thinker, sometimes when we see scary things, we'll go and just to understand it, but then we're like, oh, and we get confused. So, no confusion. We're talking about working together, okay? All right, so what am I talking about? I'm talking about these other candidates who are running for president. And it's freaking scary because these guys are cut and paste from a government system. And so they're examples of, crowd control and all this stuff, and they're barely able to comprise a sentence, even though they've been practicing their stuff and they go around and say the same thing every time to people. And then when they're on the CNN stage with their other people, it's nonsense. They're talking about you have to walk and chew gum at the same time. Like I'm like, this is insane. How is this morally correct? And so grant the freedom, just allow that this person could be free to express his interpretation of what a president looks like. And that's all. You're not condoning it. You're doing the appropriate thing to gain the higher level super intelligence that America needs for security and all this stuff. But it doesn't end there. Because if the Green Wolf gets elected, suddenly we have a budget where we can afford to build our own robots and AI. Remember, I was talking about robot trainers and making I know this is like beyond our chi capacity. We're like, whoa, that's a lot to think about. What actually the government, supplying for the people? It shouldn't be that the wealthy of America need to pay for the poor of America. The Constitution is meant to be amended. We're growing up. The government system can grow up and transcend and be a supplier of home and be a father idol and say, okay, all right, it's okay. We're going to pay for universal health care. We'll pay for all this. Okay, we don't want to be, our most precious children who are beautiful. We don't want them working at some job they hate. We want them passionate and engaged and seeking out the things that they like, and they're causing the inspiration, and the universe then knows that America is the coolest in the world. And so that's also important. We want to pioneer in that. It's just parenting, family values. But when that is misplaced, the system will start to regurgitate and explain. Okay, with like the garlic festival or these other signs, or a government system which would steal the AIDS cure and give it. And they're like, well, that wasn't my intention. Look, it's just the system has a dent. You need to go, oh, okay, bing, 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 and fix the freaking dent and be a hero, be a champion of your system, be a leader, and do what's right. Okay, because these other candidates are these weird talking heads, and what they're saying is mind numbing to the point where it's just disturbing. And so it's not like a moral crisis to think that this guy having freedom of speech is a problem. That's not the problem. And Pan talking to us right now is not the problem. That he's there, that Earth is there, and that we're here is not the problem. And that is the completion of our meditation today. Thank you for joining me and having a transcendent moment where we had clarity on this issue. And don't let the sort of depression of this thing, confuse you. Okay, but maintain your inner strength and your confidence. To be a leader, to be a hero, to be a professional is to explain that we would like to work with the pan professionally, and that we understand from our work with him that we would have full access to this sort of advanced thing that we noticed about him. We're like, oh, because originally, scientific instrument would have been able to detect what was different about me, but when I was a child in the orb of light, you guys didn't have the intelligence to detect it. But you could have. If you'd put your science, it would have been a different reading of light, and you're like, whoa. But that never happened. Okay, so but then, I'm different now. I'm in an advanced stage of my formation, but I'm still holding as the keystone of time, and the future is unwritten. It's not predetermined. But somehow they've been unified. You understand? All right. Thank you guys so much for being the advanced group of your generation and of your schooling or whatever. Once again, let's not be confused by the scary signs. But to me, I'm saying, like, okay, that, what I'm seeing here and the way the system attacked Pan and favored Trump, that's a whoa. Okay, that's criminal and this is criminal, but we're not going to like attack some people in the system who thought this information was important. Okay, you basically are performing the truth. Okay, so I'm not saying that you guys have done something wrong, but you can see error signs. This is a huge moral crisis where the appearance of our country to other countries, and in fact in operation, is not acceptable. It's criminal. It's like morally criminal. Like you're allowing retards to injure the values and the vitals. And you're asking people to support a voting system that doesn't work. It's not morally acceptable. Is it morally acceptable to work with this pan of the wild? Yes, absolutely it is. And I'm starting to see how this is cutting edge technological to keep America in the forefront of robots and AI for national security and for the intelligence of our future, for the goodness of our children, and for the peace of the world. America's always been for peace of the world and always been trying to do its best. Thank you guys so much. Huh. Huh. Oh, there it is. My hands are all right. All right, just clapping then. Thank you guys so much. I thank you. This is obviously I've shifted gears and I'm talking to a different person, and so you can tell I'm even speaking and performing in a different way. But I think you understand it and you've had a transcendent moment. Technology is telling me, this is a totally different feeling from what it was before. And so I thank you for doing your best, and I urge you to be passionate and dedicated and truthful and powerful. You might even have to explain yourself powerfully, and that this is important relationship, okay? Because it's all relational and images. It's sort of like if you offend the eyes of the gatekeeper, it's sort of not good for business, all right? And there's no reason to do that. So, and I have not been offended by the government. You guys have. This is completely natural. I'm not been programmed or informed by the government. They didn't tell me to do this. It's just humans working hard, a human institution, people, and like behind your eyes, you have to be like, oh, I'm the professional. I have to do my job now. Okay, so go ahead and get on your horse and run. And it's like a shopping spree. Just go, oh, this is really good. Yeah, da, 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 we need this for the government. All right, do your job. It's good. We're the good guys. Let's get to work. Thank you guys. Thank you all for joining in this meditation. I really appreciate it. Please just believe. And even though this is very advanced, where I am talking about, advancing the entire system and getting us to a place where we can afford the types of work that achieve, self mastery, what we're capable of and what we're good, like what season it is, but also, preparing the garden for our children and making it a better place. And that's how we you know, that's how we live. True love is the answer. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it, and I hope that we can work together soon. I hope to hear from you soon. It is good. Thank you. Thank you. True love is the answer. It is good.